Hey, friend. It has been a minute, and whether you've noticed or not, I ghosted you. Not on purpose. I definitely did not plan it that way. But as I've learned now many times, life does not always go as planned. Even when you're trying your very best to show up, to do the right thing, making mistakes and stumbling along the way. But for a few weeks now, months really, I've been praying about, okay, how do I come back to Created Worthy? Because I really just went silent, completely silent. I didn't post anything. I didn't share anything about what was going on. Over these last few weeks, I've really just been praying and trying to discern what should I share? And what I feel like the Lord is calling me to share is my story. Because if Created Worthy has been about processing our stories, then honestly, I need to be better about sharing mine. So let me take you back to the beginning, where it started. You might remember that at the beginning of the year, I was stepping into a brand new season with what is now called Rise Leadership Collective, which many of you previously knew as Heart, Soul, Strength. We've completely restructured it, and I'll tell you why here in just a minute. But we were preparing for our first big fundraising event at the beginning of the year. We were laying the foundation for what was supposed to be a huge launch year. But right in the middle of all of that momentum, I was diagnosed with a brain injury. Yeah, not exactly the plot twist I was expecting. But what followed is months of treatments and tests and new medications and more rest than I ever thought possible. But it also meant offboarding every client, postponing the Rise Leadership Conference, and watching plans that I'd pour what would equate to years worth of energy into suddenly go on hold. And yet, I can honestly say it's been one of the most refining and defining seasons of my life. There has been so much pruning in business and relationships and habits, and even in how I see myself as a leader. Because before things got quiet, they got loud. The kind of loud that only comes when everything hits at once. Success, responsibility, exhaustion, and spiritual warfare all colliding in the same moment. I was trying to juggle it all, trying to be a present wife and mom. I was running a creative agency that had scaled over 1,200% in just 60 days, 1 year prior, and then trying to maintain that. I was managing a team of 6 contractors and my first W-2 employee. I was obviously launching a new nonprofit, planning a full-scale fundraising event in another state, and hosting a weekly podcast, this one, on top of it all. I kept telling myself I could handle it, that God opened all these doors, so I just needed to push harder, be better, do more. But underneath it all, something was breaking. I was slower, foggier, more forgetful than usual. Symptoms that I just brushed off, but they were actually early signs of a medically confirmed brain injury from car accidents at the end of last year. And right when I went in for my first neurological evaluation, a 2-hour exam to establish my baseline, to see where are we starting, what is the condition of my brain right now. That was in April. That same day, my professional world imploded. I will never forget it, although I would like to. I stepped out during my appointment and saw an SOS message from a team member. I called back. I was still just in that tiny bathroom. And within minutes, my entire life as I knew it started unraveling. What should have just been a conversation about a simple miscommunication spiraled into confrontation, accusation, and confusion. It became clear to me that deception had crept in fast. While I was going through this evaluation, gossip was fueling a fire of deception. So as I was standing there, looking at my phone, shaking because I could not believe what was happening, I said a few words. I said, talk to me like a human, not somebody who did something wrong. And 2, let me call you back. Because right now I'm standing in front of this receptionist who is trying to get me scheduled for ongoing appointments for my traumatic brain injury, and I can't talk right now. Give me 5 minutes. From there, scheduled my appointments for the next 8 months, and I went to my car. I was dizzy, overwhelmed, frustrated, confused, trying to process what was happening while the voices and words that were coming through the other side of my phone and the messages that were coming through didn't make any sense. I couldn't even begin to understand what was happening. Not just because I was tired from 2 hours of brain testing, but also because what they were saying did not line up with any decision I had ever made, nor my character in any way, shape, or form. That moment, what I now refer to as Hell Day, changed everything. I'm not going to go into too many more details because that's not the point here, but I will say this. It felt like everything I'd built was being ripped away. And I know a lot of you have had moments like this. I grieved the loss of my plan. The friendships I thought were closer than they really were. The ministry I thought would look a certain way, and the security I thought I had. I found myself asking God the hard questions. Why would you let me pour everything I had financially, relationally, emotionally into something that would just end up falling apart? Why would you let people misunderstand my heart when I was doing my best to honor you while still being the imperfect human being that I am? Why did I feel like I was the villain in a story that wasn't even true? But here's what I've learned since then. God wasn't punishing me. He was protecting me. The enemy used deception to create chaos, but God used that chaos to clear the stage. I don't believe that any of the people that were involved are evil. I believe that they were deceived. And if I'm honest, I've been deceived before too, and I bet you have as well. We all have. Looking back, I can see that I had been praying for God to remove distractions from other people's lives. For months, I had been praying distractions to be gone. But I thought that He was giving me a word that was for someone else. I didn't realize that those distractions were right in front of my face the whole time. I didn't realize that the distractions that the Lord was warning me about were in the form of people that I love. Here's the deal. There were the wrong people in the right places, and God was plucking them out, not to bring any kind of shame to me, not to make them the bad people or me the bad person, but to protect the assignment that He has given me and to protect my family. It forced me to go back to the basics. It was actually my sweet friend, Holly, who has just been a fierce kingdom warrior during this whole season and such an incredible source of wisdom. So grateful for her. But she reminded me that I probably needed to read books that I had read back in my Mercy days when I was 15. And so she specifically said, do you remember reading Safe People by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend? And I was like, well, I remember Boundaries, kind of. Like, I remember that we had to read Boundaries. I probably had to read Safe People. But she just lovingly encouraged me to read it. And so I did. And by the way, I'm going to link this book in the show notes. It is so foundational. And silly me, I seem to have forgotten the basics of what it means to be a safe person. So I needed to go learn how to identify safe people and not allow unsafe people into my inner circle, because I have a habit of doing that. It also gave some groundwork about having hard but honest conversations with my inner circle. And I realized that what I had called connection was often codependency disguised as community, even family. I missed a lot of red flags, things that I now know are signs of unsafe dynamics. Things like when one person always listens and the other person always advises. When someone's irritation over small things turn into emotional explosions, and when shared trauma becomes the foundation of the relationship instead of shared growth. I didn't see it then, but I do now. And the craziest part is that since walking through that, God has brought more than 20 women into my life who have almost identical stories, especially in ministry and leadership circles. It's wild how many of the most fruitful ministries have faced nearly identical spiritual attacks in their early stages, like John and Lisa Bevere, who have openly shared about being misunderstood and attacked before God multiplied their impact. So this isn't a story of betrayal. It's a story of protection, a story of pruning, a story of God removing what was never meant to stay so he could rebuild what is. And that's where my real healing has begun. This year has forced me to slow down and say no, not out of bitterness, but out of obedience. No to overextending myself. No to doing extra work outside of my scope just to keep people happy. No to hustling for my worthiness. Some of that came from the physical reality of having a brain injury. I literally could not do what I used to do. But the other part, that was spiritual surgery. God was building a backbone in me, teaching me the difference between being accountable and taking false responsibility, something that I have grown into in my adulthood under the pretense of radical responsibility, which is important and does make sense. But when you're taking radical responsibility for things that are absolutely not your responsibility, they're not your problem, they're based in lies, then we do not need to take that responsibility. But I did, just to keep the peace. I felt like that was being a good leader, but that's not what it was. So I needed a leadership backbone. And this is what God has used to develop that in me. The biggest leadership lesson I've learned this year is this: never, ever let people, no matter who they are, be louder than God. We've all been given spiritual gifts for a reason. That pit in your stomach might actually be discernment. Don't discredit it. I've had to recalibrate my life and put everyone back into their right places. God first, then my husband, then my daughter, and then everyone else. For whatever reason, that order just never came naturally to me, even as a Christian. Maybe it's childhood trauma, maybe it's ADHD, or years of living in a constant state of disassociation. But I've always been the type to pick a direction and go, even if it meant sacrificing peace at home in the process. And that has been another miracle of the season, watching God heal things inside my home. My daughter is doing better mentally and emotionally than she ever has. And for those of you who have walked with us over the course of her life, know how huge of a deal this is, especially after the last couple of years. And my husband feels seen, supported, and loved, which again is another miracle moment that happened very quickly as a direct result of this horrible situation. And I'm just so obsessulated with him again. At least in this moment. I mean, I love him always, but I'm obsessulated with him in this moment. And if you don't know that reference, it's Wicked, which is coming out in just a couple weeks.
I'm obsessulated.
Wicked 2 for Good, which is absolutely 100% my favorite musical and movie. I just love it. I love Wicked. So I'm elated with him. And I'm also obsessulated with Wicked. Anyway, our home, for the first time in a long time, actually, you know what, honestly, ever, feels peaceful. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how this even happened. In August, I took the entire month off. Well, almost. I did squeeze in a last coaching call with my beautiful friend, Bethany Rees, one night in August. I woke up at 1:07 a.m. and I couldn't shake the voice of the Lord. I opened my notes app and wrote this. It's 1:07 a.m. Get your house in order, declares the Lord. You don't need more. You don't need better. You need to look around and steward what I've already given you. I looked around my dark room, my husband snoring next to me, a cluttered nightstand, clothes piled up on the floor. And suddenly I knew exactly what the Lord meant. Stop looking outside your house for order. You don't need more bins, containers, or glass jars. You need to enjoy the space I've already given you and rest in the peace of knowing I'm bringing order to chaos as you continue in this season of rest. Turns out, getting my house in order has nothing to do with organizing closets or power washing basically everything in sight, which is what I did, and I also ruined 2 of our best rugs in the process. Anyways, Although I really only shared the highlights on social media. I didn't tell you I ruined the rugs. I just showed you that I was ruining rugs. You didn't know I was ruining them. You just knew I was cleaning them. But those rugs did not come back to life because they were wool, and wool holds a lot of water, and there was no way for me to get all that water out of there. And then they stunk bad. And then, anyway, I miss those rugs. We're moving on back to what the Lord had me write down and process that night. This is all still part of the note. It's about releasing control of any expectations, diagnoses, or circumstances back to the only one who really knows what our futures hold. I guess this is what my journey into rest looks like, which was the very intention I set at the beginning of the year and even glued in my planner. This isn't the path I thought I was walking on. It just cut off there, like the word was complete for that time. But now I would add, this isn't the path I thought I was walking on, but it is the path he has set before me. So for that, I choose peace. I've been receiving a prompting in my spirit to, I guess, get my house in order all year, but I didn't have words for it. And what I was doing was organizing closets and deep cleaning every room in our house, which was good. That was all signs that my brain was healing. But because I still wasn't slowing down enough to actually hear, and cleaning was something I could control, God needed to scream at me. I call this encounter at 1 a.m. a time that God screamed in my face, which is exactly what I need. Because if you know me in real life, I am actually really not good at picking up social cues. Example A, my husband said if he couldn't be the groom at our wedding, then he just wanted to make sure that he was the best man on my side so that he could make sure I was okay. And I still did not get that he was in love with me. Like, no way in my mind was that possible. Anyways, sometimes I just need to be told straight up, which is what also happened with that. I had a friend scream at me and be like, he's a great man who loves you and loves your daughter, and you need to be with him. Why do you keep choosing chaos? And I was like, that is such a good point. That is such a good point, because I missed the point. So I had been missing the point this whole year when it came to what God was trying to actually speak to me about, quote unquote, getting my house in order, i.e. surrendering, i.e. go to freaking sleep, Danielle. But eventually I got it after he screamed at me at 1 a.m. and I realized it really was about surrender and releasing control and trusting. This was the big thing. Trusting that even in rest, which for me has been in all forms, including sleep, God was working. He was working on my behalf the whole time. Okay, quick shout out to my chiropractor's office manager over at Infinity Wellness Center in Aurora, Colorado. Yes, this is a shout out. Truly the best and most caring wellness community I've ever been a part of. Ashley introduced me to a book called Declutter Your Heart and Your Home, which I will link in the show notes. It has been such a timely read for me in the season. She actually sent it to me the day after that 1 a.m. message from the Lord. Like, I've been thinking about you and the Holy Spirit put you on my heart, and also to share this book. Here's this amazing book about declutter your heart and your home. And I was like, what? Okay, cool. So I listened to it. So good. It's a beautiful blend of both tangible ways to declutter your home, like the nitty gritties of your home, like the things that you're constantly avoiding and never actually want to do. Like, we can organize a linen closet, but when was the last time you cleared out that bottom corner cabinet in your kitchen? Have you looked in the drawers in the back of your desk recently? Like those kinds of things, right? And connecting them to how minimalism is not about just having a capsule wardrobe or very little things. It's actually about having a minimalistic mindset and just simplifying things. And that is 100% what I've needed, is to simplify. It was actually, this is just a sweet story, but I asked my sit-to, who is my grandma who passed away last year at the age of 101, almost 102. I asked her what the key to a joyful life was, because she lived a very joyful life. And she told me simplicity. The key to a joyful life was simplicity. And I hated that at the moment because everything feels complicated. But now I appreciate that more than ever because I realize how much easier it is to just keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. I know you've probably heard that. I couldn't help but say it. I had to. Sorry. Anyway, a few weeks later, at the end of August, my husband and I went to Chicago to visit my dear friend and recent co-host, Sharita, for my birthday. It was everything I needed. Deep conversations, amazing food that she made for us, long walks, lots of laughter, and I even got my first pumpkin spice latte of the season with my fellow ex-barista, which just felt poetic. Oh, and I have a quick little story about our time in Chicago just because I think it just shows how amazing Sharita is, and she really does deserve way more honor than I've ever given her. But hopefully this makes up for it. Sharita literally saved my life during a full-on sweat attack, which is just a weird side effect of one of my medications. So shout out to her for her quick thinking and my new appreciation for overpriced grab-and-go water bottles at the Starbucks Reserve in downtown Chicago. While we were there, she also taught me how to make sourdough, and she even packed me some starter to take home. And honestly, that has become one of the most grounding rhythms in my life in this season. God knew that I needed a new hobby, right, God? Don't ask my husband about that. But God, he knew I needed a hobby that actually benefits my whole family and doesn't just lead to a new pile of crafts in our living room in the corner where all the other hobbies are. Anyways, sourdough is a slow process. The waiting, the tending, the satisfaction of creating something alive. There are just so many analogies I could knead together from this process. Did you catch that one? Okay, so to break this all down, I ghosted you. I know, I'm sorry. That was not my plan. Hi, I just have to cut in because I 100% forgot to say this earlier. All of these episodes for like the last few seasons are all on YouTube. This one specifically, I got into a super creative hyper fixation loop tonight, the same night I'm recording. But if you're watching this one on YouTube, there are some visual treats for you because I got super focused tonight and put pictures in it and stuff, which doesn't normally happen because who has the time to do this consistently? Oh my gosh. And I'm even wearing my like prism I hate these glasses. For the listeners, they're like your grandfather's transition glasses that like broke and are stuck in transition, but they're part of my vision therapy for when I'm on screens. Ella, would you like to say something to my created worthy audience?
No, there was not just a dying goat in here. That was Charlie, our dog. And hi.
A dying goat?
Yes, that was not a dying goat. That was our dog.
Okay, I'm done. But these are the three main things I've been doing. 1, sleep. A lot of it. There were days I slept 18 hours one time. I even slept 23 out of 24 hours. 2025 will forever be the year God put me to sleep. And thankfully, I heard a quote earlier in the year that said something along the lines of, sleeping is the ultimate form of trusting God to work on your behalf. And so that has carried me through a lot of this year, knowing that God is working on my behalf, even while my eyes are shut. Because that is exactly what it's been, a time where I've had no other choice but to trust that God will continue to work on my behalf, working out issues and making decisions for me while I am literally asleep. The second thing I've been doing, appointments. Oh my gosh, so many appointments. Just thinking about it makes me want to cross my eyes, which is actually something that we're working on. Anyway, neurology, TBI specialist, chiropractic, acupuncture, biofeedback, neurofeedback, MRIs, CT scans, pain specialist, psychotherapy, massage, vision therapy, and that's not even all of them. That's just the ones I can remember. My calendar has basically been a rotation of healing modalities, which is such a blessing considering there are so many people on this planet without access to any care. Whenever I get frustrated by something to do with insurance or doctor's visits that could have been a phone call, God always checks me and says something like, your frustration is someone else's miracle. That awareness pulls me right back into gratitude. And lastly, the third thing that has been keeping me going and just has been a huge part of what I've been doing over the last however many months since May is wonder. He has put out a very open invitation and actually just a direct ask for me to engage in wonder. It's actually kind of funny. It started early in the year when I got invited to one of my sweet, sweet friends' retreats that happened to be just 20 minutes from my house, hosted by one of my best friends and mentors, Krista Francis, who is an incredible missionary. She also has this ministry called Girls with Guitars, where she teaches girls of all ages how to play guitar. So the whole entire 30-day challenge that she does is learning how to play guitar by playing worship music and then connecting it to biblical stories. It's amazing. But anyway, she had and I didn't know what to expect. I just knew I needed a break and some time with women who love Jesus and creativity just as much as I do. That weekend was an absolute gift. We laughed, we worshiped, we ate snacks, we ate delicious home-cooked food, and I will never forget Kate's lemon bars. They were so good. And we were just able to be. But more than anything, it was one of those rare weekends where you just know you're standing on holy ground. There were a few moments that still give me chills. Women speaking prophetic words that felt so specific. It was as if God himself was speaking to me through actual words saying, pay attention. And one particular thing that was said was that my family would be walking into a season of sweet, renewed rhythms. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant, and it really didn't feel possible because everything felt so chaotic. And I also didn't realize how much more pruning it would take to get there. But that word wonder just kept echoing in my spirit. Fast forward a few months, and I did something I hadn't done in over 10 years.